He's an author, highly decorated columnist, has been in the media business for many, many years. He was just back from vacation, or is just back from vacation. He started on 3.com, and Ivan Maisel joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. How was your vacation, Ivan?
Well, David, it was great. We actually went to Stockholm and Oslo, so two places I've never been before and probably won't be again.
And you also, I think, did you not announce your retirement before you left?
Well, I'm not calling it a retirement. I just decided I wasn't going to cover college football the way I have since 1987 anymore. I'm still going to write, but I want to do other things.
So, Ivan, I saw a picture that a few people, when you mentioned you were going to do some other things, talking about memories of working with you and what it meant. And one of them was the picture of Jerry and Jimmy at Mia's in Dallas when all that was happening, and that you happened to be there eating dinner and called a photographer for the Dallas Morning News to come help maybe break one of the biggest stories ever.
Yeah, well, David, I had spent all afternoon with every other member, living, breathing member of the morning news staff, searching Dallas for Jimmy and Jerry. And I think I sat in a hotel lobby for about 3 hours. And I called my editor and said, "Hey, my girlfriend is coming home after being gone for 6 weeks. I want to take her to dinner." And they said, "Fine, go." And she got home, and we lived 2 blocks from Mia's over on Lemon. And I said, "What do you want to eat?" She said, "I'm dying for Tex-Mex." So we're standing there waiting for a table, and the door opened, and there came Jimmy, Jerry, and their wives. And, I turned the whitest shade of white you've ever seen. But I just walked. They went over to get beers while they were waiting for a table, and I walked over and tapped Jimmy on the shoulder. And he turned around and said, "Oh, Beep, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, Jimmy, I live 2 blocks from here. What are you doing here?"
Yep.
So he laughed and introduced me to Jerry, and I kind of very quietly walked down the street. This was 1989 or 88, whatever it was, and 89, and walked down the street to the Shell station and used the payphone and called the office. They sent over a photographer.
Garrett, I just sent you that photo if you want to throw it up in a second. What was it like to, just as a reporter in response of, I've just stumbled onto this, could you even have a focused, nice dinner that night, or were you just thinking about work?
Well, I was a little tense waiting for the photographer to show up. And then he showed up, and he was in there about 5 minutes, and I couldn't see their table. But he left, and I walked over after we finished eating and said goodbye. And Jimmy said, "Well, you got your picture." And I said, "Well, yes, we did, and thank you, and see you around." And what I remember is that the next morning, Frank Luxa, who was just such a great columnist and was then at the Times-Herald, wrote a column that ran on 1A above the fold and said, "We don't even know if these people exist," which was just Frank's sense of humor. And it was a great column, except that right above the fold on 1A, we had that entire, was that picture of them grinning and signaling that an era was ending and a new one was starting.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There's the picture of Jimmy and Jerry. Jimmy looks pretty much still the same, just a little bit different with age. And Jerry, of course, has changed dramatically, but you could still see the features at his face. Ivan, what was it about the atmosphere, the pageantry? What is it about college football that you love the most?
Well, that it means so much to people. David, I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, and it meant a lot to me growing up. And I understand to this day why it's so important. So being able to tell those stories and the history of the game and the import of it and meeting I mean, all the great coaches that I've dealt with, what you learn is that they're all really good teachers. And because of that, they're good communicators. So it was easy to write about them. And it's just so exciting. I mean, God love the NFL, but you don't get that passion and energy that you get with 100,000 people when you go see an NFL game, because you didn't go to the NFL school. People feel very close to their colleges, and that's where they became grown-ups and where they met their lifelong friends, and that's why college football is so important to them. And all of that just fed into why I was able to do it for so long, because it means something.
What concerns you most about the future of college football, and what are people too worried about that probably won't change that much?
Well, I think last year eased my fears of the unknown, in the sense that, last year was really the first time that NIL and the portal had a full head of steam, and yet we had a great season, and it was really exciting. And we had a Cinderella in TCU come up and, get right to the very end. And so what that told me is that, the intrinsic appeal of college football still hasn't changed, even though the kids are now earning money and they can go wherever they want. I'm not the one who came up with this line, but it's always meant something to me. At the end of the day, we all root for laundry. We're rooting for those colors. And then again, because it's your school, and that's what means something. So last season sort of reinforced for me that it'll be okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because you hear about the super conferences, whether it's the SEC and Big Ten just gobbling up whoever they want, and then they play their own national championship. Do you feel like because we root for the laundry that won't happen?
Oh, I mean, it may happen, and the Pac-12 has an uncertain future, and the Big 12 has got a shot of adrenaline with Brett Yormark, and I mean, I'm concerned that it's going to be the Big Two and everybody else in terms of the conferences. But if you look at it, really every 10 years over the course of my career, we've had a spasm of realignment, and that's what we're going through now over the last 12 months. Another spasm of it. I think SC and UCLA is a really dumb decision by them, and I understand why they did it. They did it for the money, but I think every other school that's made that sort of play has not been as competitive as they were when they were in the league they should be in. If you look at Nebraska, you look at West Virginia, you look at Boston College. All those schools made money plays, and we've never heard from them again. And I fear that's what's going to happen with the LA schools when they just have to travel over and over and over again.
Ivan, I would argue that Texas A&M is the only one who moved and remained exactly who they were with just a nicer house.
Yeah, that's true. They have one great. In my career, anyway, they had one great run with R.C. Slocum, and after that, they've been good but not great. And it's kind of where they are now.
Ivan, you pointed out that you've seen different waves of realignment. You covered the game and other sports long enough to see things happen, and just they happen more than once. We treat it like it's new right now, but it's happened plenty of times before. And the same applies to a lot of other areas, and that includes the media changing up. And there's been a lot of shakeups here in the industry as of late, as I'm sure you're well aware, and as you've been through previously. You were part of the start of On3. That's thriving right now, it appears. But what's just kind of your general take on what you see when you look around the sports media landscape these days, and you see just how crazy and kind of unpredictable it is at the moment?
Well, it's unnerving. I don't know what to do. I get calls from young people. I get calls from veterans. Say, what do I do? What do you think? And I don't know what to tell them. I mean, the business I entered is all but dead. And where do you go to write? You got to find a website, or you do your own deal with Substack or Medium, and everything seems to be shrinking. I mean, On3 has found a great niche. I was very lucky to get involved with them early. They're smart people, and it's doing well, and I think it's going to continue to do well. But what's happening with sports media isn't all that different with what's happening with media in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of big fish, and then there's everybody else that's not swimming very well.
Ivan, what other projects do you have in mind for your not retirement? Yeah,
well, I said I want to write what I want to write, and my wife said, "Oh, okay, so you're going to continue to write. You're just not going to get a paycheck." I said, "Yeah. I've got a couple of book ideas that I'm going to pursue, and if I see something that I want to write, I'll try to figure out where to sell it." And On3, it said, whenever you want to write something for us, please do. And so I don't know. I'm not going to make any fast decisions. In fact, I've spent all day I'm researching a book, and I've spent all day sort of, with my head in the internet and making notes, and that's what's occupying me right now. But I'm also just going to kind of hang and see what happens.
How long does it take to research perhaps a book you're going to write compared to how long it takes to write it?
Well, that's a great question. I think the idea I have, it's going to take me, several months to do the research. And, I'm not sure whether I'll begin writing while I'm researching, or I'll try to get it all done. I mean, in order to write a book proposal, you have to write a sample chapter. So I'm going to have to do some writing at some point, but I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm a history geek, and I'm enjoying the research, and we'll see what happens.
Ivan Maisel, author, columnist, long time, many times awarded for the best stories written and columns as well. And then, of course, and we've asked you about this and discussed this as well, about your son who passed away, and you wrote the book about him. Do you feel like the impact, because of your personal experience and what you wrote about your son, Max, has helped with the awareness of suicide?
Yeah, David, I think it's helped. I hope it's helped. I mean, in my town here in Connecticut, the local library has a One Book, One Town event each year. And this year they picked my book, and the whole town, quote unquote, the whole town read it. And I went to Fairfield University, and the theater was filled, and with a lot of people I know and a lot of people I don't. And I talked about the book, and I went up to my branch library today, and there was a sign there with about 25 copies of my book saying "For sale, $3." I guess we're all moving on. But it was very gratifying, and I continue to get emails and calls from people that want to talk to me and want to let me know what the book meant to them and how it's helped them, and that's why I wrote it. Hopefully the word of the book will continue to spread.
By the way, in our chat room, which is off to the side, which can be its own little world, but a lot of that are listening and watching what we do, and we appreciate the opinions. So many people love your work. Not that you need to know that, but literally like every third or fourth text when you first came on, we mentioned you were coming on. Love your work, love your writing, and compared you to many of the great writers in our lifetime.
Well, that's really kind. I appreciate knowing that. I had so much fun working in that part of the world, and it means a lot to me. And that I really appreciate you telling me.
Last thing, you're a graduate of Stanford, and you mentioned USC, UCLA. We know what that's meant. It was 1 year ago today, the Pac-12 announced, like 5 days after the USC, UCLA story popped, that it was 1 year ago today when the Pac-12 announced that they would start to work on their television media deal. You know where that is now. How much consternation or annoyance or frustration or no, everything's going to be fine, do you feel is going on right now with George Kliavkoff in the Pac-12?
Oh, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a college football fan. It's frustrating, with an alma mater that's hemming and, waiting to see what happens. I feel a little bit better about Stanford's long-term prospects because of the reputation the university has in academia and because of the broad-based success it's had in so many sports. They'll find a home. But it's just sad that all those rivalries are endangered. And certainly the Stanford rivalry with the LA schools, that's outside of Cal, who is their main rival. Those are the games that mean the most. And they just walked away from them. And that's the lifeblood of the sport. And, over the course of my career, there have been plenty of rivalries that have been tossed aside, and I think the sport is poorer for it. I mean, who is Penn State's rival right now?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have one. Who is Nebraska's rival right now?
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have one, and the rivalries make the sport. So it's too bad.
Ivan, we appreciate it. I remember we had you on when On3 first began, when you were a part of the launch, and appreciate you. Whatever you do, I know it's going to be done well. And as somebody mentioned, very elite in what you do as a writer. We appreciate you jumping on with us, and we hope you had the great vacation and also enjoy whatever you do next.
Thanks, David, and I hope we talk again.
Yes, sir, we will. Ivan Maisel, imagine